Are you someone who's wanted to make a change in your professional life, but you just don't know how to make that decision? Well, the conversation I have today is going to give you a lot of insight on how decisions get made to move the needle forward in your business, whether that's changing industries, moving on from an industry, or starting new ventures. My conversation today was with Viktor Ryan, the team lead of Ryan & Co. Realty Group based out of Worcester, Massachusetts. Viktor has experience as a business owner and entrepreneur in multiple different industries, whether that's owning restaurants, entertainment spaces, marketing, and now real estate and real estate investments. And when you meet someone like that, your first question is, well, how did you get from where you were to where you are today? What made you go from restaurants into real estate investments? Because on the surface, they sound very different. But as Viktor and I talk today, we get really deep into his decision-making process. What led him from one venture to the next, and how does he keep everything on track? If you're someone who has multiple different businesses, multiple different ventures, or a lot on your plate, you need systems. And Viktor and I walk through the systems that he utilizes to stay on top of his business and the principles he employs from a management perspective to empower his team to get things accomplished. So stay tuned for the conversation today with Viktor. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Viktor Ryan to the show today.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
Pumped to have you on.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it will be. I know when we talk, real estate, obviously with working together and being involved in business, I think a lot of the conversations that we're having align with the show in the sense that obviously you're in real estate. Now you're leading a team, which
new beginnings,
big transition we'll talk about, and being involved in the investment space. Yeah. I think for you too, having that experience as a past operator in a different field aligns with a lot of the people listening in the sense that entrepreneurs, one thing we stress on here is you go through a lot of phases when you move into the entrepreneurship world, especially in real estate. Like you start as that person whose goal is just to complete the task. Let's do a transaction.
Yep, start to finish.
Then as you start to scale, it changes. Now you're like, how do I become more efficient? How do I hire to create that efficiency? Do I need someone else on the team, whether it's like a transaction coordinator in marketing? And I'd imagine for the investments, it's very similar. Like at first, if you do your own flip, you're probably managing almost all of it.
Yep.
But then you start to create, okay, how can I make efficiencies or systems or operations? So that evolution for an entrepreneur is what a lot of people enjoy, but it's not always a clear path. I think sometimes people get stuck in that transition from being the solopreneur to actually running, a business. So I'm excited to dive into that with you today and learn more about you. But for people who don't know you, share a little bit about how you got into real estate and what you have going on right now.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a direct path. I spent 5 years managing Sky Zone trampoline parks. Loved it. I had 300 employees. I was a regional director in 3 states. It was a lot of fun. But that entire time I was making somebody else wealthy. So one of the franchise partners, after they sold, said, hey, I'd love to bring you on. Let's partner up on something. What do you have for cash? We'll make you a minority owner. So I'm out in Vegas, and I'm into bodybuilding at the time, and I see a place called Protein House. I had a little bit of a good time at a pool party, and I said, I need something healthy, a little bit of protein. So I took a trip out to Protein House, a little outside of the Strip. Called my partner. I said, man, we got to bring this to Boston. We have to. So flash forward about a year from that point, we signed a franchise agreement to bring 10 protein houses to Massachusetts. First right to refusal, all of New England. We opened one in Marlborough right away, a second one in Worcester. During that time, I was the sole operator, like 70, 80 hours a week. I was not making myself wealthy by any means.
It's a grind.
I was working like crazy. And I just found out Sam and I were having our second kid. So already had our daughter who was about to be a year old, had a second one on the way. So we're going to have 2 under 18 months.
And starting a business.
And running 2 businesses. So when we opened Worcester, it kind of hit me like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do all of this. So I had some people who were interested in buying into our third location, which was going to be Burlington. And they said, I'll buy you out of your shares and I'll take shares of Burlington, but I don't want Worcester. So when I had that conversation, I realized that I found an exit point, which is not very often in the restaurant industry. A lot of time the exit point is a failure point. So I started pursuing that opportunity, knowing that I wanted to be a full-time father and not a 80-hour-a-week restaurant guy.
Sure. But
when I realized that I'd be leaving the restaurant in the near future, I knew I need to pivot into something else. So after working, 12-hour days, I was going to my real estate course. I did my 40 hours over, I think it was 5 or 6 weeks, 2 nights a week, something like that. Got my real estate license, finished the sale of Protein House, and I didn't really know where to start with real estate. So to be honest, for the first year, I didn't sign with a brokerage.
Good for you. Independent.
I didn't do anything, to be honest. I got a bunch of cash out of Protein House. I knew I wanted to be in real estate. And in that year, I accidentally started a marketing company. Yep. I updated my LinkedIn, my resume, and people just started reaching out to me saying, hey, we want you to operate this. We want you to run this. And I just kept saying, no, that's the same thing I've been doing. The last 7 years, I've made everybody else wealthy but myself.
Sure.
So it finally hit me. I had marketing income coming in, paying the bills. I had a chunk of change in the bank. And I was like, all right, let's get serious. So I signed with a small-time brokerage. Sorry, no offense. A smaller brokerage, not small time. They have some big agents there, and I won't disclose their name. But they weren't looking to develop agents. So I went in, I kind of did my thing, and it didn't really go anywhere. So again, I backed out of real estate. So now I'm 2 years licensed. My license is about to expire. And I said, man, I don't know. Do I keep doing this? I don't really know what to do. Like, I'm just kind of like a licensed realtor, but I'm not working in real estate yet.
Or you don't have the clear path.
No clear path and no instruction. Like, do I call other brokerages? Like, how do I do this? I just really didn't know. And it was very weird for me because, I had won General Manager of the Year at Sky Zone Trampoline Park. I was a top producing.
300 employees.
Yeah, 300 employees. I was a top producer for Protein House as well. We were number one, only 12 stores in the country, but we were number one in Marlboro. I know you've been there.
It's great. It's great.
It was amazing. And I'm just I'm very stuck in real estate and I didn't really know what to do. So I'm playing tournament softball and I see a guy sponsoring a team and I'm like, all right, he seems pretty big into real estate. He shares a lot of stuff. He posts a lot of stuff. And all of a sudden, a few weeks later, I get a call from a past client who I kind of talked to. I showed a couple houses saying, hey, I want to get back in the market. And I said, oh man, I'm not even affiliated with a brokerage right now. I need to figure something out. So I called that guy from softball, who's my current broker and my business partner on flips. I said, listen, man, I need to get back into real estate. Tell me what to do. And he laid the path out for me. And here we are about 4 years later, 4 years of full-time real estate, giving it my all. And I'm not the biggest realtor in central Massachusetts, but
you're being humble though. You crush it.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. I'm happy with where I am. I have a good work-life balance. I'd like to produce more, and that's the objective this year, and where it led me to the team and things like that. But it was a very weird all-around path.
And you made some big decisions throughout that.
Huge decisions. And I didn't know, there was never I want to do this, I want to do that. I just knew that real estate could provide me the independence I wanted, to provide my own wealth. I knew that whatever I put into it, I would get out of it. And whatever I got out of it was going to be enough for me and my family. And I just knew that I was the driving factor. No one else was. There was not another boss to answer to or partners or employees or anything like that. I knew that it was solely about me and my family. And that's what excited me, but there was no path at all.
And when you got drawn to real estate, it was for what the position and lifestyle could afford you in terms of, like you're saying, obviously, it's not necessarily the real estate itself. Like some people, every agent has a different answer to that question of what drew them to the process. Some people say, oh, I bought my first house and I realized I wanted to be that person to guide someone from start to finish. Other people are more of, well, it provides me the opportunity to control my own schedule and be my own boss. So you led more on that direction of what really drew you there as opposed to the real estate asset itself.
So that's certainly solely how it started. I mean, I wanted the independence to be a father, be a husband, keep coaching kids sports, which I do a lot of now. I wanted to be who I was and not lose myself to a career. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm working any less than I was. I'm just working for myself now. I am the sole beneficiary of my work and my output. Now, of course, I have the team, so my work effort, reflects them as well. But now, I would say about year 2, after I'd sold, 20 houses, I was kind of at the point where I was like, man, this is a lot like how I taught people at Sky Zone. And how we taught people at Sky Zone was when you're coming into a place, they're handing you money for something, right? It's a transaction.
Sure.
Okay. We total our sales and our success based on transactions in real estate. But how I wanted to treat it was how we treat it at Sky Zone. We wanted it to be an experience. We didn't want them to think about the dollars and cents that they were giving us. We wanted them to think about the time that they had. All the fun and the laughs and the bounces and the flips, all that stuff. And that's how we try to treat real estate. Obviously this is the biggest transaction in most people's lifetime. And we know that, so we're not forgetting about the dollars and the cents, but we want it to be an experience from top to bottom. And that's how we attack or approach every single client. We want them to remember us. We want to remember them. What they loved about the house 10 years later, we want to remember that. Like, oh, do you still love that little room in the basement?
Sure,
like we want to remember that because we want to make that personal connection. Now, a lot of realtors have the same philosophy, and some are really just a numbers game. I mean, there's a lot of real estate influencers out there, like, stop making friends with your clients. Like, this is a business. I'm like, I get it. Like, it is a business, but
I think of the real estate professionals I've talked to, especially agents, the ones who produce the most, I find generally majority of those people actually have a similar approach to what you're saying.
100%.
Because if your objective is to create a seamless process and give the client the best possible experience, the numbers will follow.
Absolutely.
But sometimes focusing on the numbers, you lose sight of that important aspect of what experience is the client getting. Are they getting the value that is justified by the service or the cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the more value you give, the less people start to question the cost. Like in any service, in any business.
100%.
Similar, I would imagine, with Protein House. Like if you're providing all nutritious, natural, fresh, not frozen food, that's going to come at a higher cost for the consumer. But if it's quality and tasty, they'll justify paying for it.
Exactly.
It's a similar type of logic.
Yeah, 100%. And that's a lot of times, like I've done trainings at my office and I actually talk directly about this, like how to make this real estate transaction feel like an experience and less so much about the dollars and cents. And of course, we have to talk about it. We can never avoid it, especially from the lending side. Like you have to talk about it. But, how can we make it so positive? It's, great communication, good relationships with your lenders, your attorneys, your inspectors, having the contractors or the plumbers, whatever, in our back pocket that say, hey, this is who I trust and who I'd recommend. We just want to make it as seamless as possible. And make sure we're there for them. We don't just disappear after you close. We want to follow up and make sure they're still happy. Are you still receiving mail from the previous person? How can we, help, transition this and get it to them? Just staying involved throughout and until they're fully settled. We want them to know we're right here if they need anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think one thing that as I've listened to your, more about your story, obviously I've heard it, some similar pieces before. But one thing I feel like entrepreneurs really struggle with there is like the ability to make decisions. And I think a lot of times people have the decision they know they should make, but they just don't have the courage to actually do something about it. So I want to peel back that layer a little bit as we talk about your transition, because I know now, obviously you have the team and that was much different from being a solo agent.
Yep.
Talk me through that process of what encouraged you to make that decision. And were there any past experiences that you drew on that helped you know that was the right direction to go in?
It was kind of a developing process. So my wife, Sam, obviously got licensed a little over a year ago now, which was not so much to necessarily add volume to the business, but kind of have a backup and alleviate some stress. I've had the opportunity of, double ending some deals, which is great for me financially, but I'd like the opportunity for it to be completely ethical and make sure there's never any crossing. So I thought bringing on my wife and those opportunities would be great because she could represent one, I could represent the other, and the money still comes to the Ryan family household.
Sure.
But that way, both clients have their fiduciary respects, responsibilities, and we're completely separated. So that was like the initial thought. Plus now she'd help me out with paperwork at home if I'm on the road or, checking MLS for me if I forgot to do something. She's just accessible now. So it started that way. The marketing, bringing my wife on was fantastic. We started doing walkthrough videos and things like that. So it just kept developing. And last summer, I mean, my biggest 9 months of my career was January to September last year. I honestly closed 90% of my business, and the last 3 months was pretty quiet. Learning phase for me.
Sure. Sure.
And during those 9 months, it was crazy. I mean, between vacations, being a dad, being a husband, and giving my absolute all to my clients, I started feeling like I was stretched a little thin. Now, not to the point that I couldn't handle more. I just wanted to make sure that I could still give 100% to each cup. Sure. And when I started feeling like I couldn't, without burning myself out, I started thinking about a team member, someone that could work full time and could approach the game full time. And that's when, ironically, my broker was like, "Hey, have you spoken to Andrew?" And I was like, I think he's covered an open house or two for me, but no, not really directly. He's like, "I think he'd be great for you." And I said, "Okay, well, why? What do you think?" And he said, "Well, you guys, you're very aligned. You're family men. He wants to be full time. He's hungry. He's working every weekend when he can. He's just constantly volunteering to put work in." I said, "I don't know. I managed people for so long, and I was very hesitant at first." And I said, "All right, let me meet with Andrew." So we met, we had a great lunch, and I said, "All right, man, I'm going to give you some homework." And Andrew still works a full-time job. So asking him to do some significant homework, is a task for him. That's taking time from his family and his wife and, his freedom to do it. And I said, "All right, man, so next week, tell me how it went." 2 days later, he said, "Hey, it's all done." And I expected, it wasn't more than, 5-6 hours worth of work, but I expected him to spread it out over a week. And he said it was done in 2 days. So great, let's meet again and talk about numbers. So we met and we talked, and I said, "Listen, this is what I'm going to provide. I'll hold your hand. I'll be by your side. I'll be a leader for you. But this isn't free. There's not just infinite leads and infinite resources that are just going to be handed to you, day after day. We have to work hand in hand together.
You have to be willing to put in the work.
You have to." And he's been doing that. He's been fantastic. Just a great guy. Love his family, love him. So it's been a lot of fun. It's actually reinvigorated me to remind me why I loved management. Because it's not about managing people, it's about leading people. And the coaching side of it, it's actually really invigorated me to really, just loving the game, seeing other people's success, not off of my back, but, with my support, right. With a little push and nudge, so when we got Andrew going, he's covering open houses for me. We're doing showings together. He's doing his messages and contacting people and marketing. And it's fun to see him start to grow. And then I got a random phone call from my wife, Sam's best friend. And she was licensed for a couple of years. And I mean, we spent Christmases together and holidays and birthdays. Sam was they're both each other's maid of honors. We're very close. Natural, yeah. I'm Uncle Vic to their kids. We're very, very close. And Casey spent 2 years licensed in real estate, small brokerage, wasn't able to guide her, teach her, support her. And she let her license expire. And they had a life-changing event. And she said, "Vic, I'm going to get my license again. What do I need to do?" I said, "Well, here's the deal. I want you on the team. You're going to leave your other brokerage and we're going to do this. And I'm going to teach you everything that I was taught and then some." You've been involved with her since she got started, and
she's kicking butt.
She's kicking butt. I mean, she's already closed one. She had 2 more under agreement. She is talking to people every single day. And that's where I'm so excited for her and Andrew doing the same thing. They're talking to people every day, which is probably, I think it's something we plan on talking about, the hardest part of real estate.
Absolutely.
Just putting yourself out there, getting comfortable with hearing no, or getting comfortable with not getting a response to messages or phone calls. The sooner you're more comfortable with that, the better off you'll be.
And what do you feel is the biggest reason why agents, or it doesn't necessarily have to be real estate specific, but why people fail?
I think 2 things. I think they get too comfortable with where they are, and B, they're too afraid to make that jump. They're afraid to get to the next level. The embarrassment of hearing no, the fear of investing in themselves, even if it's financially. I'm at the point now where my sphere does feed me, which is very nice. Sure. But I know my sphere is only going to feed me this, but I want to get to here. So now I'm financially investing in myself, which isn't affordable, of course. I'm not going to take huge risk, but I have to put the money into myself. And if I don't, it's not going to come back to me. So I think a lot of people hit that wall of, how do I break through? and they're afraid to kind of push through that wall.
Right.
And then other people just, they get too complacent, to be honest. And that's probably in any sales career.
It's true. I think the complacency, it's almost twofold, where I think it comes from two different things. Because what I notice, like some sales professionals who start to accumulate business, they either get complacent or they fall into like the analysis paralysis of making another decision.
Yep.
Like they're busy enough where they should hire someone and they don't. And it's something I ran into, too. Going through my career, I wish I was just talking earlier before the show with my video producer and saying he was hiring another editor. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like,
yeah, makes sense.
Go for it. And what we were talking about was early on in my career, I wish I hired two people I have 2 years ago. Like I wish I just did it back then when it didn't really feel necessary, because it slows your trajectory down so much that it impacts almost everything. One, of course, your personal life and your work-life balance, but your client experience. Like I always thought my clients would, it's that fear of controlling the experience. Like entrepreneurs have that fear of control. Like my clients would be disserviced to not talk to me.
Yeah.
Is a lot of people's initial thought.
If you're not 100% there.
Correct.
And there's a little bit of someone else, you get that fear. Like,
but in reality, if you structure the right team with the right people, they're better served by having other resources to talk to, better systems in place, more access. If there's 3 people on an email chain versus 1, the likelihood of a quicker response is much faster. But if you put the right training in and the right trust, there's that extra benefit of having a team that I think a lot of people early on don't see because they're worried about the control factor or they put themselves on a pedestal. So I think that's part of the complacency that I see people fall into. And ultimately what ends up happening is sometimes the client experience suffers because it's either one of two things are going to break. Either your personal life breaks because you have to put in all the extra effort, or you start to lose business because you don't have enough resources to control the same level of experience your customers were attributing before.
100%. And that was part of my fear because, I'm very type A. I have my ways of doing things, but I'm trying to teach that to my team. Yeah. So I have to put trust and faith into them at some point. And the very first buyer was one of ours, Gina Yates. And she got the full team experience. My preferred lender, my preferred attorney. Casey did showings with her. Sam did showings with her. I did showings. Andrew did final walkthrough. I mean, she literally experienced the entire team all based off of my recommendations. My inspector as well.
She was thrilled.
And I kind of asked her because I knew Gina a little bit personally. I knew her older brother much better, but I've known Gina's family my entire life, her entire life. So I just asked her directly, I'm like, Gina, did you feel ever like you were like passed off, or did you feel like you had an extra like 5-star service? Yeah. And she's like, no, like it was amazing. I just knew I could schedule something at any time and one of you would cover me. I was like, okay, so the team is working. Yeah. And I kind of asked her directly, I'm like, how was Andrew? How was Casey? How was Sam? Like, oh my God, they're all amazing. Like, love them all, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, perfect. Like what I envisioned is working. Now just trust it. Yeah, just trust it and go with it. And that's kind of how we've been approaching everything. Even a couple of Casey's under agreements right now, I've been very involved with. Ariana and Zach, they were looking down in Connecticut. Casey's not licensed there, so I did showings in Connecticut. Casey's doing her home inspection with them, and I'm doing a home inspection with Casey's other clients tomorrow because, her schedule is conflicted. So, just working together as a team, getting to the end goal, it's a lot more fun.
You have synergy. Yeah. It's nice to be able to have that, camaraderie. And
it really is.
It's awesome to hear the clients sees that as a benefit because that's, the ultimate home run. But I feel like for a lot of people, like one challenge is, even for me, it's you have to learn a whole new skill set to be able to manage a team or hire employees and have them produce a similar level of service that you are. And obviously your experience with with the Sky Zone and with Protein House, you've had a ton of experience managing teams. So I want to pick your brain on that a little bit. Like what would you say are some of the hardest things for people to learn when it comes to management and leadership? What are some things you've maybe learned over the past few years that have helped your business? Or when you took over your team, what were some past experiences or beliefs that you drew on to help push people forward?
Yeah, I think managing expectations is super important. Let's not overpromise and underdeliver. I told them both, Andrew and Casey, that if they give me their all, if they're doing everything I tell them to do, that they could close 10 to 15 deals this year. And, I'm not saying other team leads might promise more than that, sure, but if I said 25 or 30 when that's the numbers I do, that wouldn't be realistic.
Right.
So I want to give them a realistic goal. And I think at the end of the year or beginning of this year, we kind of set a team goal together. And I'll let you know at the end of the year if we've reached that.
Sure, yeah.
And, we made some projections, and I wanted it to be realistic and attainable for them, because no one wants to get defeated saying, oh, I failed in my first year or anything like that. So realistic expectations, consistent follow-up, positive reinforcement. It's very easy to get discouraged in this team, especially early on. I mean, totally. I'll be honest, I've had a tough stretch I've lost 3 listings over $2 million total this spring to completely unconventional things. Our friend Sam, who all of a sudden she can buy someone out of her house right now, sure. Wasn't expecting that, and other little things. So just keeping people motivated and positive and not getting too down on themselves. That's where I think I come in, and that's more of like my coaching background more than just management. And that's how I manage anyway. Like, you struck out this inning, you're up to bat in 2 innings. Sure. Stay positive, stay focused, keep doing the right things, stay warm on the sidelines. Yeah, and that's just the leader I try to be. Is it perfect? Probably not, but so far the team seems very happy. We all talk every day. We cheer each other on. We have team meetings every other week, sometimes more. We do our lunches with people like you and Jess and other vendors. So kind of just like you said, building that synergy, keeping people focused, energized, and wanting more, I think is my biggest responsibility.
Love that. And that's culture, which everyone talks about, but I feel like most people just use it as a buzzword. And you can look at, I was listening to John McNeil's on a podcast with Ed Milet. It was a great podcast. But John was the former president of Tesla. He sits on the board of Lululemon, and he was a part of Lyft, bringing them, to the rise. So incredibly, talented professional. But he talks about the idea of the reason Tesla is so successful is, yes, Elon's a visionary and he's incredibly smart, but the culture that he created in Tesla, John and Elon accredit a lot of their success to the culture they created, which is different than the norm in their space, where they basically told all their employees, hey, question everything. If someone says this is the process for doing this, why? Could we do it a different way? So if we didn't have that culture of inspiring people to be creative, giving employees a voice, helping them understand our mission, we would just be another car company. Yeah. We don't want to be Toyota. We want to be Tesla. So I think it's something I've learned too throughout the process, even with some of the hires I've made in the past. Like, we've had some people we've hired and fired, or hired and quit. Mm-hmm. And I try to look back and reflect of like, what's the misalignment? And a lot of times it's culture. From the beginning, I had a question about their personality fitting with our team, but look at their resume. Like, they're incredibly technically skilled.
Yep.
But in especially customer service industries, that team camaraderie is so important to have them believe in the culture and fit as a part of the culture. And I just think that's something that people don't really see early on, because you can be the best coach in the world, but every team has that one player who doesn't want to be coached.
100%.
And that's the hard thing to realize.
And in our field, it's a small circle. It's not a big circle. It's not, I manage 75 people down the street in Westboro alone. And yeah, to get along with everybody, that's just, I spent 10 minutes a day with them. It was a little different. So you're right. The personalities have to click. I've had other suggestions for team members before, and I've seen that. Like, I love them, love to get a drink with them, love to hang out with them. I'll take a phone call anytime, but I don't know if that's someone I would want to talk to 7 days a week. Sure. And at least not business-wise. Great,
of course,
just, we're not completely compatible in that sense. And when you have that small circle, it does need to have that right synergy, that culture, that energy, and chemistry. It has to be someone you want to talk to every single day. And if you don't want to talk to them every day, the relationship probably won't work.
No, you can give all the advice in the world, but if someone doesn't want to take it, then it's not going to be productive. And that's a function of them not fitting what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly.
And it's a hard thing to I guess, recognize early on. So I know for you, obviously, great you had the previous experience, because otherwise you learn.
Yeah.
It's funny how many entrepreneurs, when they go through this progression from themselves to a team, like, there's so many new things you have to learn. Like, you could be the best salesman in the world, but a lot of salesmen don't end up becoming managers.
Mm-hmm.
They stay in sales. It's such a different mentality, different mindset that a lot of people don't strive or push themselves to unlock.
Yeah. I mean, I try to learn from other people as well. So, there's a fairly new team. I know you work hand in hand with Ben and Brooke. I mean, they absolutely kill it. They have a huge team. I try to learn from them. I have great respect for both of them and what they're doing. And then there's another team. I won't bring them up because I don't know them personally, but I've watched them for a long time, and they're a smaller team. They've been together for a long time, and they're all top producers. And when Casey signed on, she's like, all right, Vic, I'll give it a year. And she's like, it wasn't like a personal thing. She's like, I'll give it a year. We'll see what happens. I said, well, just so you know, in a year from now, if you don't need me like you need me today, we'll renegotiate.
Sure.
Like, I want this to be a long-term thing, like how I see this other smaller team. Like, I want us to work hand in hand together and keep growing together. And maybe one day you're a team lead underneath the team, and you're bringing people up, and like a pyramid in a sense. Who knows how it's going to go? But I'm always looking to like develop and adapt and change. It doesn't need to be the same structure for the rest of our careers. I want to grow together. So I try to look at what other teams that I have respect for, kind of what they're doing, learn from them a little bit. I know what I'm striving for, and I know what I'm not striving for.
Right, that's important.
And kind of staying in my own lane, but just trying to learn and develop myself. Obviously, my management skills, my coaching skills, those come secondhand to me. Those are easy to me. But when it comes to the real estate and developing that way, I'm always looking to learn from others.
Absolutely.
And I have to.
So important. And so many people that I talk to, even on the show, like, they always mention how important a mentor is, whether you're directly in front of them or not, but having people around you that you can lean on for advice
100%.
or direction is super important. And as we talk about that, I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about some of the investments you're doing in real estate flipping, because I find that it's entrepreneurs and always have something else going on, which is a great thing, but it's hard to always manage those systems. But a lot of the skills are very transferable. Mm-hmm. So if you're owning a business, you're a real estate agent, you're in restaurants, fundamentally, some of the skill sets are similar. Obviously, the nuances and technical details are very different.
A lot of overlap for sure.
Like I'm in real estate, I could never run a restaurant, but I could understand the concept of how the systems flow and the operations work. But talk to me about flipping. So when did you get into that? What made you decide you wanted to do this in addition to what you're doing on the agent side?
Yeah, so my broker, Brian Carpenter, him and I have always gone along really well. 2022 was my first full-time year. At the time, we were One Worcester Homes and rebranded to the Neighborhood Realty Group.
I was going to ask you that. I never knew when the transition happened.
I think late last summer, give or take. Of course, it was after I named my team Ryan & Co. Realty Group. So now we're Ryan & Co. Realty Group under the Neighborhood Realty Group. But whatever, it's fine.
It all works.
It works. So 2023, I won MVP of our office, led our team in sales, or our office in sales. And I've always done okay financially. I have other income sources. So I was talking to Brian one day, and he was like, listen, I'm thinking about getting back into flipping. You in? I was like, I don't know. Like, what's it going to take? Like, I don't have that much money, man. He's like, no, we'll get hard money. I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. So secured the hard money source, knew how much cash we needed out of pocket to get started. And we just started kind of putting things out there, and we let the whole office know that, hey, we're looking for flips. If you know anything coming up or whatever. And one of our agents, who's a part-time agent, does 1 to 2 deals a year, has a full-time job, and that's her lane. Like, that's where she wants to be. Great person, love her. She found her first deal. It was her dad's house. She showed it to about 3 people off market. She kind of negotiated with us directly and said, this is where you need to be. We didn't take a buyer agency commission, obviously, but we found it off market in Rutland. We knew when the dad needed to sell, when he needed to be out, what we could do to help him. He wasn't so much a hoarder. It was just that his kids lived there their whole lives, and when they moved out, they didn't move all their stuff out, and he didn't move all his stuff out ever. Sure. So it wasn't a hoarding situation, but we had about $8,000 in trash removal. Cool, yep. You could walk around the house and stuff. I've seen much worse. But that was the first one we found. And definitely some lessons to be learned directly from the first one. Building inspectors do not consider flippers homeowners. So I cannot pull my own permit and manage licensed professionals. So we actually got shut down for trying to do that. No kidding. Yeah, we had about a 2-month shutdown, because originally I hired everybody, painters, plumbers, framers, carpenters, electricians. I hired everybody managing the project. And I mean, the first month, I don't think you could move any faster. Like this was, it's right online. I'm fired up. This is great. Plumbing inspector came in because we added a second bathroom to the upstairs of a cape. So we turned the cape into a primary, which is really cool. He came in and he brought in the new building inspector that just got hired. And the building inspector said, well, who the hell is managing this project? And I said, well, I am, sir. I filed the permit. And it's like, well, your name is VB Flips. You're flipping this, right? I said, well, yes, sir. But I'm not doing any of the work. We're using all licensed professionals. Everything's to code. He's like, you're not managing this. Get a contractor. Boom. Red sign on the door. Shut down. It took about 2 months. Luckily, we knew someone we trusted and liked who has done work for us in the past. He was actually doing the landscaping for us at the time. I said, hey, need your GC side of this. Can you get him plans, get this ball rolling? So we brought him on. It did slow down the process drastically, but it was a lesson learned right on our first flip. Just you're treated a little bit differently than a typical homeowner, which is fine, but...
The learning experience is everything.
100%.
And I think sometimes people let the fear of the unknown stop them. But as long as you can quantify, the outcomes from like worst case to best case, and you can live with both, then it's worth the learning experience. Like I know from, one of the first flips I did, I even said that to my partner at the time. I was like, for me, as long as we don't lose money, like I'm okay.
I've had a lot of people say that to me.
Putting in time to learn the process. Like
100%.
Think about it, talk about it too much where I need to take that step. Even if I lost money, it's almost like I paid for a course to learn how to do this.
Exactly.
But the next time I can guarantee you it's going to be so much better. And so that was my mentality going into it. And sure, there's a lot of things that I would do way differently, even with rental properties or, on the loan side, but there's always things you can take from it. But people, I think too often get stuck with unknowns, especially in real estate. People go, I want to invest in real estate, whether it's buy a multifamily or flip a house. But they're like, I've read a few books, I've seen podcasts, I don't know where to begin. I don't know, what if this happens? What if that happens? But then once you get into it, you realize no one really there's too many things to learn. No one fully knows everything until you're super experienced.
Yeah.
Even the people who've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, there's still something that comes up that they have to make a call to someone else
100%
to figure out the answer. So it's like, put yourself around the right people and you'll figure out, where to go from there.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate? So from that point, you had the stop order, you got back up and running. What ended up transpiring did things work out?
So yeah, we were super fortunate, and honestly, we have been. We're onto our 6th flip. We have 3 going right now. So in our first one, we went about $15,000 over budget, a couple months longer than we wanted to. We caught the fall market. We sold at a good price. We made a good profit. Nice. We were definitely happy with it, and we were lucky with our first one because we kind of built that one with a little bit of a cushion. We were very fortunate, honestly, with our first one. I've worked with our flip clients, good friends of mine, and the first couple that they bought were very tight on the margins. They wanted to do it. I advised, like, hey, this is going to be tight, and they basically broke even or turned a few bucks at the end of the day, but it wasn't a big success. So our first one, we were very lucky. We had that cushion built in. If we missed by 20%, we're still walking home with a good chunk of change. Sure. And honestly, so far, our first 3 that have bought and sold, very profitable. We've been very lucky. Of course, there's been curveballs. Our second one was probably our easiest. We bought one in a small town in Connecticut, like a suburb of Putnam almost. We were in and out in 52 days.
Wow.
From purchase to sale.
Those who don't know, that's incredibly fast.
Purchase to sale. It took us about 3 weeks to get it back on the market. It was kind of lipstick on a pig. We completely redid it, detached garage, the roof, put on an electric door because it was like an old barn door. Cleaned up the exterior. seeded the whole lawn. It was actually a nice yard, but it was just all dirt, like pure dirt, no grass at all. Seeded the whole place, redid the kitchen, carpets throughout the bedroom, living room, new flooring in the kitchen, serviced the boiler that like wasn't working. So we swapped out a few parts. Like it was really like lipstick on a pig, and it only sold for $225. So it was like real like low entry house.
So very efficient.
Yeah. So we were in and out. I think we spent about $30,000 on it, and made like $45,000 in profit in 52 days.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, I would do 100 of those, just to be clear.
Absolutely. That's every flipper's dream.
Yeah, because I mean, our third one was a complete opposite of that. The third one was over $140,000 in repairs, from new septic, windows, boiler, all new plumbing, new electrical, new roof, like all the big ticket items we did. And that was actually probably our hardest learning experience. I know we talked about potentially crossing that road.
Yeah. That
That was probably the hardest one for us, and even as a realtor, more than a flipper. So this was in Voluntown, Connecticut. You've probably never been there. No. It is a very rural town. Everybody has acres of land, big garages, horses, goats, whatever. This was a big, beautiful house on a small property. 4 beds, 2.5 bathrooms. It was like 2,400 square feet, but built on a slab. Only I think it was a third of an acre of land. No garage. So I said, okay, everything else in this area is selling for $550. So no garage, no basement, not a lot of land. I'm like, okay, we're like $5-ish.
Right.
We weren't. We were $450. We were on market for 3 weeks, and all of the feedback was, I don't have a garage, I don't have land, I don't have a basement. And I said, wow, that's a learning curve also for me as a realtor, because I spend most of my experience in central Massachusetts. Right. Everybody has basements, a lot of them wet, but everybody has basements. Garages, great if you find them, but if you don't, it's usually not a sticking point for everybody. Land, you don't see a lot of land in central Massachusetts.
Right, third of an acre is
pretty big, yeah.
So like, up here.
I severely underestimated that market, that clientele, the people that were looking in that area and what they were looking for. Ironically, the person who bought it was active military moving from Virginia. So, I mean, Virginia sounds like they'd have acres of land and garages and basements, but these guys didn't care about it because no one local was going to buy it.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so that was, as beautiful as the flip was, as much money and work we put into it, it was still missing those 3 factors. That's
so market specific.
Yeah, very market specific.
And so since then, from a process standpoint, have you changed anything about how you evaluate your flips or processes you put in place, whether it's to potentially hedge against that happening, or from the contracting side, like what are you doing now that's different because of those things you learned?
So right now we're spread pretty thin. We have Keene, New Hampshire, Holden, Mass, and Norwich, Connecticut. So we're over 3 states right now, 3 different contractors, all of which are hoping to be done this month. Hoping to have all 3 on market May 1st, give or take.
Sure.
Give or take, but they're all projecting that way. So for us, we are more hyper analyzing each market. Keene, New Hampshire, for example, it's a college town. Nice town, of course, fairly blue collar. So we want to make sure that we're fixing this to be a blue collar buyer. We're not putting a $5,000 wet bar in, 3-bedroom split level, 1,200 square feet.
Sure.
In Norwich, Connecticut, this is a nicer town. It is on a slab, which, is one of our man, I don't love that it's on a slab, but it does have a garage, a great yard. We're putting in central air. So we're kind of doing all of the extras on this one. We built a beautiful laundry room on the main floor because it was actually out in a hallway before, so we moved it inside the house. So we're trying to meet the quality of buyer that we're going to see in each town. Our Holden one, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, raised ranch. We know it's an entry-level home in Holden, and that's where we're going to build it to.
Sure.
It's going to have nice finishes and fixtures, but we're not doing anything crazy in there. We want to let it be an entry-level buyer.
Sure. I think that's a lot of people don't realize that at first. Like that, you can see every market has such a different buyer pool.
Yeah.
That I've flipped a couple houses, but I'm not nearly as active as you are in that space. But it's so interesting that those types of things, you don't necessarily think about who's going to buy this house. Like I see all the time flips come on the market and I'll have clients on the loan side are interested in them. And some of their feedback is always like, well, why would they do this or that? Because I wouldn't have chose that. And that's the majority of the buyer pool has the same thought, where it's like in a community that's very high end and they don't renovate high end.
Yeah,
so they keep, there's Formica countertops and Home Depot, shaker cabinets. And for that neighborhood, that's the only house that has that. Like buyers in that area aren't looking for it.
Excuse me.
So I think that is interesting that it is very specific to the market.
Yeah, I try to learn through others as well. So I have flip clients. They're dear friends of ours. We hang out all the time. Our daughters are on competitive dance team together. They got into flipping through me, which has been a lot of fun together. Their very first flip was in Barry, Mass. And, they're a little bit wealthier. They live out in Middlebury on the lake. They're a beautiful, expensive house, all great stuff. Sure. But the first flip they did, they were flipping it for themselves. And, they kind of forgot that they were in Barry, which is a little more rural, a little more blue collar. They must have spent $15,000, $20,000 on marble.
Marble's not common in flips.
They built a $5,000 wet bar in a 1,500 square foot ranch off of their dining room. They extended their kitchen countertops into like an island almost, all with marble. They took the fireplace and turned the whole brick into marble. Like just things that should be in $1 million colonial in Shrewsbury and not in a Barry ranch. And luckily for them, they learned from that. They said, okay, we overspent on this one. We kind of went above and beyond when we didn't need to. Maybe we could have just painted the bricks, could have kept that wet bar as a laundry room like it was before. They, little things like that, and that might have been an extra $15,000, $20,000 in their pocket at the end of the flip. Sure. So there's also the overspending, like you were saying. You really want to meet who the clientele is that's going to buy it, and that's all you need to do. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing extravagant for the houses that shouldn't be extravagant. And if they're supposed to be extravagant, make sure they are.
Right.
You have to have the even like when we're working with agents, the visual perception of the house has to meet what you're paying for it,
But yeah, absolutely. It's so hard too when you're actually in the house, because for me, that was the hard thing is I realized I shouldn't really be on site as much as I was before, because my opinions aren't always best for the business objective. Like I sometimes think like a homeowner of, it would be nice to have this.
Yeah.
Which you have to have that perspective. But if you continue to do that over the course of a project, that adds 10%. Of, we could just paint the brick, but let's get rid of the fireplace.
Yeah.
And make it modern. Yeah, a buyer will like that, but is it worth the $30,000 or whatever, hypothetically, $10,000 to actually put it in? And so I realized maybe I should be less involved on the decisions of design touches and keep it to someone who can make those from both sides of understanding the buyer, but also from the affordability of the actual cost to renovate that. So I found myself in that spot, but you learn. I mean,
you have to learn. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. And what do you feel like today? Obviously you have different ventures. You have the flipping, you have real estate agent, you're leading a team, and you have other, things you're involved in. What do you feel like are some of the principles that allow you to be able to do so much at once? Is it systems? Is there some sort of discipline, daily, structure you have that helps you be able to be efficient? Like what, if someone said, Victor, how do you do all of this? Like what would your answer be?
It's a great question. Honestly, systems and structure are super important. I'm not a huge early riser, get after it first thing in the morning. I like to spend time with my kids, but the second they go to school, the laptop's breaking open. Unless I have appointments. But if I don't have an appointment first thing in the morning, I am on the computer. I'm making sure I'm managing everything that's in my control. Day to day. If I have paperwork that's due today, I'm getting it done today. If there's things I need to finish, I'm getting it done today. I try to not push anything to the back burner. Because that back burner can overflow very quickly.
Absolutely.
And then you're playing catch up. Like losing internet and power yesterday has me playing catch up today.
Sure.
But if I didn't have my systems and structure and I was 2, 3, 4 days behind on what I needed to do, today could be a disaster. I might have called you and said, man, I can't do today.
Right.
So I think that's super important, staying structured, staying focused on tasks. And then honestly, between all the things that I have going on, just communication. Knowing when to delegate, knowing where to delegate, and knowing your line in the sand too. I have a marketing business as well that we haven't talked about a lot. One of my clients is expanding into another venture, and he's like, hey, do you want to take this on? I said, at this level, yes, but not at this level.
Knowing your limits.
Just knowing my limits and knowing, where and what to pour more into. I think pouring more into real estate and my team and flipping is more beneficial to me.
Absolutely.
Than taking on another marketing project. And I love that side of my life. It's just a smaller side, and I don't want it to, conflict with other things I have going on. But yeah, structure. I mean, if
understanding where to put your time is so important, because
so important.
It was this quote, and I'm going to totally butcher it, but it was basically, people think like the most valuable thing you have is either your time or your money or whatever your situation is. But this particular conversation was saying, and I agree, I think, is that your most valuable asset is actually your attention. So it's not necessarily time or money or resources, but what gets your attention. And I think as an entrepreneur, sometimes that's hard.
Yeah.
To make that decision of what am I going to focus on? Not necessarily how much time am I going to put in, but what am I going to focus on and put my resources into? That's a hard one.
It's not easy.
And when you say systems, like, what does that mean to you for your business?
I track everything. So every time we go under agreement, I have a spreadsheet at home, like, is inspection done? Do we negotiate? Negotiations are done. Check it off. Is appraisal done? Whether I'm on the buy side or sell side, I call the listing agent, like, hey, appraisal all set. Want to make sure that's all done. Have I spoken to Ryan today to check in? Like, sure. I'm a very checklist oriented guy. I'm fortunate enough now where mentally I can do it from the road, get home at night, say, yep, talked about that, check it off. So staying on top of checklists. I also keep a steady spreadsheet of anyone I've talked real estate with. And I have coding for them as to like who's a cold response or warm response or, red hot. Let's push them to talk to Ryan, pick up the phone.
Sure. And you set follow-ups off of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, we all have different online systems that are great, and we let the AI take over and things like that. Sure. But I'm a hands-on guy, so there's some people I don't want to say I set and forget, but I can set them up on a search, and I know that they're shopping. And like my good friend Keith he's a multifamily buyer, and he's looking for a single family right now, and I know he's looking for a single family. We also grew up together. He's bought houses with me before. I don't need to like hound him every day. Sure. I know he's loyal to me, which is great. But just understanding everything you have on your plate, where it stands, what's going on, I think that is super important. Ryan Serhant talks all the time about like juggling balls. That's his saying. Like, I'm always learn
to juggle.
You have to. And I'm always juggling a million balls, which is fine because I know where they all need to land. So I think for any like newer agents, that's super important to understand. One, you need to find the balls to juggle. Yeah. Because if you don't have a million balls to juggle, you're not going to close deals. But B, knowing where they're supposed to land and when they're supposed to land, that comes from systems.
Really good point. I was actually talking with a newer agent last week, and he was kind of asking me like my opinion of how do I do this, right? Like kind of what you were saying early on is there's not really that direction. And I kind of had a similar answer. I didn't use the juggling analogy, but I basically said the same thing is you just have to have multiple activity streams going at the same time.
100%.
But have an outcome that you're shooting for. Like a lot of times people will, in any business, they'll host an event or a promotion. Great. But what happens after? Like, are you taking those people and putting them into a CRM? Are you following up with them? What's your plan with the outcome? Like you get these contacts, what are you going to do with them? Or you go and meet with a new vendor partner. Or for him, he was like, well, I'm meeting with other agents to learn about the business. What are you asking them? Are you intentional? Like have a plan for the things you're going to do to know you'll be more likely to achieve the outcome.
100%. Yeah.
Curate your question list. Like it sounds crazy, but no one does that. But if you're going to sit in a meeting for a new business proposal, you plan it. You know questions you're going to ask. Like for the show today, I obviously went through, put together an outline of generally what we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. Same thing for a big business meeting. If you're going to sit down with someone who's going to buy a protein house, they better have some questions, right? I mean,
100%.
They better do some research. So same thing with coffee meetings or new business partners. Like be intentional. And I think that's a hard thing for someone early on. They're like, I'm just going to do activity, which is great. Like that's step one. be out there, have conversations, talk to people, but like, what's your end game? What are you going to do when you go meet with them? What are you going to ask them? What do you want to happen? What do you want them to say?
Yeah.
What's a good answer? What's a bad answer? So I think that's a really important point too, that you just mentioned. But juggling the balls, but know where they're going to drop.
Yeah, you have to know. And you got to have the systems and know when to follow up, where to follow up. It's a learning process. You know, Andrew and I talked a lot. He's, you know, he knows this, so I can say it, but he sometimes gets in his head a little bit. Like, man, you know, worst case, just over communicate. Don't be afraid to send that second text message. Go for it, man. 100%. Like, be intentional, provide value. So teaching agents to do that it's hard. You know, it takes time to get over that hump and to give that confidence.
It can definitely be hard, but I think once you realize like what's the worst possible outcome.
Yeah, someone says no. Oh, like no.
Alex Hormozy says, "What are you going to die?"
Yeah, exactly. No.
Okay, and if you die, then you die. So like understand
it's
the
all
worst
over.
possible outcome.
Yeah.
Then nothing matters at that point. So I think that's it's a good point. Obviously, he takes it to the extreme with the analogy, but it's true. Like people get stuck in the small decisions, but just keep doing the task. Learn, get better, and don't worry about what
keep adapting.
Client's going to think. If you know there's good intention behind it.
Of
Sending
course.
that follow-up text. I did an episode a few weeks ago, and I was talking about that. Like the entrepreneurs I find who are successful, not always, but their ability to make decisions quickly on things that don't really materially impact them is usually very high. Mm-hmm. So for example, I use the analogy of ordering at a restaurant. Like some people will sit and look at the menu for an hour. Some people go in, look at it once, pick something. And then when the waiter comes around, oh yeah, I'm ready to order. And it's not always, but sometimes usually those people, they're in a position where they're required to make decisions more quickly.
Yep.
So I was joking where I'm like, if I go to a restaurant, I'll look at the menu, but get me the steak, get me the chicken. Like I like it all. So if I had to make a decision, I'll just make one. I'm never the type of person to be like, yeah, give me a few more minutes. Usually I'll just be like, yeah, I'll get the chicken bowl. Yeah. I'll get the chicken rice bowl. So I think that's an interesting thing I've picked up on recently that I was talking about.
No, it makes sense. That's how I live my life. Got to act quick, got to decide quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talked a lot about your mindset in terms of how you've grown, things you've learned on how you manage your businesses. But for someone listening who wants to get into real estate or wants to start their own business, like what would be your piece of advice for them to take away to help them get started?
Yeah, specifically about real estate. And I actually experienced this like hands-on. Someone reached out to me that I had played sports with in the past and said, hey man, I think I'm going to get my real estate license. What do I do? So I said, okay, don't do what I did for the first 2 years. You know, put yourself out there. Go tell people right away, hey, I'm working on my real estate license. I'll be licensed in the next few months. Can't wait to share the news with you. Tell everybody that you're about to get into real estate. Then a few months later, celebrate that success story that you passed your license, you passed your test, got your license. Right. Now you're in real estate. So now people, you already warmed them up a little bit. Now they kind of feel guilty. They got to say, oh, congratulations, man. That's awesome. Congrats. You know, you get a little bit of that excitement. But part two is find a brokerage or a person that's willing to develop and train you. Don't go to a place that promises you the world but doesn't show it. How many agents have they started from zero and gotten to 10 deals in their first year, or 12 deals, 15 deals, something that makes you full-time, at least financially. Sure. Find an office that is willing to do that, or a mentor that's willing to do that, a team lead or whatever it may be. But certainly don't go to a place that prioritizes top producers, that doesn't have time for the little fish, because you will be eaten by the big fish. Sure, yeah. And not physically or even literally. It's hard to break through in this industry. And if you don't have the right path to get there, you'll be stuck at the bottom of the ocean for a long time.
Or it'll take you a lot longer. It's like, why take the slow lane when you can take the fast lane?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm super excited. The person I mentioned, he came to my office for a while. He did just switch offices at the end of last year, which was like a big jump for him, and he thought he was ready for that move, and I think he's doing pretty well. But he came in, he followed the path. He's probably closed, 20 deals in his first 2 years, which is way better than my first 2 years. Awesome. I was 0 deals in my first 2 years. Sure. But he followed the path. He learned from people. He picks up the phone. He asks questions. He communicates. So he does all the little things that really help kind of develop you and build that foundation, which is nice.
Needed. And it gets you that jump start.
Yeah.
You can learn sure on your own, but get to the person who already knows how to do it.
Yeah.
But is willing to put in the time. Because that's another big thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was it was reflecting too on what I would do if I started back again. And I was fortunate. I had, an awesome mentor. My father was obviously in the business, but I'm like, wow, if you don't have that, it's incredibly difficult. So
it really is.
People talk about mentors all the time, and I just can't emphasize how true it is. Like the people who accelerate the fastest, not that they have someone. I think there's a misconception too with mentor and training. Like people assume that if you're going to get a mentor or you find someone who's going to train you, that it like discredits your success. Like I think some people do think that of like,
absolutely not.
Oh, well, they showed you how to do it. It's like, yeah, but I still have to do the work.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't getting handed a business. This is, I'm showing you the things that I did, but you still have to do them all. Like there's still a lot of input there. I think sometimes that barrier stops people, but I can't emphasize how untrue I believe that to be.
No, I agree. I mean, I relate a lot of like my coaching or my managing and leading to coaching. And you think about like sports teams, the guys that get scholarships to UNC and Duke and all the big name schools, UConn and who just won? I don't even know.
I don't either.
Michigan, they just won. Those guys aren't guaranteed to go to the NBA. It's the guys that are showing up 2 hours before practice, the guys that are staying late after practice, getting extra workouts in. Those are the guys that are going to make it to the NBA.
Absolutely.
Or should make it to the NBA. So it's not just about the coach. It's about taking what you're learning from the coach and then applying it to your real life and your free time and kind of contributing to yourself. So
100%.
The folks that hop on teams and find mentors, they have to invest in themselves just as much as the leaders investing in them.
100%. It's what you do with the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Like you could get put on a team, for example, whatever may be UNC or Michigan. If you're on the team, on the roster, it's great, but what are you going to do with that opportunity?
Yeah.
You can actually put in the work.
You have to seize it.
It's a very small amount of people who actually go on beyond that. Same with business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this was awesome.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Excited to hope we'll have you back.
Yeah, anytime.
We'll see the progression.
Oh,
Talk
yeah.
about the next 6 flips, the next couple people on the team or more deals. I'd love to continue the progression.
Absolutely. Looking for more growth.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you.